The new leader of South Africa's governing African National Congress Party vows to fight corruption. Strong reactions in Uganda as legislators vote to remove the presidential age limit. And the healing power of music is real, but how does it work? Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening, I'm Esther Githu. You are in for Vincent Makori. This is Africa 54. The new leader of South Africa's ruling party has laid out his priorities for a focus on stamping out corruption and transforming the economy. Cyril Ramaphosa made his maiden speech at the close of the 5-day African National Congress conference in Johannesburg. Ramaphosa was chosen to succeed embattled President Jacob Zuma as party leader. Ramaphosa's narrow victory over ex-cabinet minister and former African Union head Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma is seen as a pivotal moment for the ruling party, which is now deeply divided with its image tarnished. During his speech, Ramaphosa paid tribute to President Zuma, saying the ANC would be united despite a fractious campaign. Ramaphosa says he will pursue a policy of radical economic transformation that will speed up the expropriation of land without compensation.
This conference, with overwhelming agreement, unanimous agreement, has resolved that the expropriation of land without compensation should be amongst the mechanisms available to government to give effect to land reform and redistribution. It has also been resolved that in implementing this decision, we must ensure that we do not undermine the economy, the agricultural production, and food security in our country. That is what is important.
Ramaphosa, a union leader turned businessman, is one of South Africa's richest people. His message to fight rampant corruption and revitalize the economy has been hailed by foreign investors. Ugandan legislators voted late Wednesday to amend the country's constitution to allow 73-year-old Yoweri Museveni to extend his rule, potentially guaranteeing him a lifetime presidency. A provision in the current constitution limits the age of a presidential candidate at 75 years, which would have made Museveni ineligible to stand for re-election in 2021. On Wednesday, legislators ended a protracted and chaotic process to remove that age limit, voting 315 to 62 in favor of the amendment. Opposition lawmakers say they will continue to oppose the amendment. From Parliament to the streets of Kampala, there has been mixed reaction to the move.
I'm disappointed that our own constitution, which is supposed to be durable, as it is stated in the preamble, has been amended just like that.
This bill is like any other normal bill. It's not special. It's like any other bill. And to us, it is normal business. There's nothing strange about it.
Bill will not help this country because even some few NRM, they have already gained it from this bill. But Ugandans who are suffering like us, we are not going to gain anything. It is just for Honorable Museveni, for the one who is going to gain on it.
We don't have political future in this country from up to date because first of all, Museveni is a military dictator. He's the one who's tampering the constitution. Everything's under him. When you look at security, when you look at all the institutions, even the judiciary, even the electoral committee, everywhere is under him. He's the one to say, pass it.
What next after you have touched the constitution? What next after you have broken the hearts of Ugandans?
Now, Wednesday's vote was the second time the Ugandan parliament has changed the constitution to allow Museveni to extend his rule. In 2005, they voted to remove a limit of 2 5-year terms, which blocked him from standing again. Several African leaders have amended laws designed to limit their tenure. Such moves have fueled violence in countries including Burundi, the DRC, and South Sudan. Now, Nigeria's 1999 constitution guarantees freedom of expression, but journalists in that country continue to face enormous challenges in their line of duty. Some have lost their lives in the hands of Boko Haram militants, while others find themselves on the wrong footing with the government as they cover political scandals and corruption. And joining me here in the studio to talk about press freedom in Nigeria is Oreoluwa Shonibare of Channels Television in Lagos. Oreoluwa, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Now, from your own perspective and from what you know from the ground, especially when you're covering political scandals and stories that link government officials to corruption, how difficult is this for journalists to do their work right?
Well, it is a good thing that President Muhammadu Buhari, when he came into power, he said he was going to fight corruption, to the end, And that gave the world of journalists, a breathing space, breath of fresh air, because it was really tight before, And that move made everyone realize that with the president beaming his searchlight on corruption, he would give it a lot of space. So yes, there's some times that you find it is a very difficult thing, because a lot of people want to do things they don't want people to know, but it's our job as journalists to ensure that people know these things. And the president's support of fighting corruption makes it a lot easier.
But have you seen any changes? Let's say a journalist wants to do a political story that needs government sources. How easy is this journalist going to get it to pass through to be able to get some of the reports he needs to get to?
Well, it is not an easy process, because there's always red tape. Nigeria has a lot of red tape, and I'm sure a lot of countries as well have that red tape. But as a journalist, you have to forge on and you must get that story right. You must forge ahead.
Now, what does it take to cover areas that are kind of controlled by the Boko Haram militants?
The two words they tell you when you're in the line of, as a journalist, they tell you, be careful. Be careful of your sources. And always, once you're careful, you always have to also follow the lines of protocol. Once you get a lead, you call your superiors. I have so information. And your superior will advise you as best as they can to go ahead. But then again, there's always what you call sixth sense. You can't trust everybody, but you must trust everybody. It's a fine line of balance and understanding that in following a lead, you must be very careful, because, sadly, Channels 5 years ago in 2012, we lost a colleague to, it was shot in Kano State by insurgents, and that made us realize that we need to be extra careful, in what we're doing as journalists, But you can't say you're not going to trust anybody. You must follow your leads. You must follow the best of your ability. Trust your instincts, and share your information with the people who have sent you there, so that they will know your everything.
Is there any kind of protection for journalists, especially when you're going to cover areas that have, Boko Haram informers and maybe Boko Haram militants themselves?
Yes. Well, the security agents, you let them know what you're doing. Always connect with the security agents that, I'm going to this place. They will tell you the security issues around there, and if you need escorts, if there's need for escorts, they will let some follow you. But you must always let people know what you're doing. Do not go to, if you're in a very volatile place, let people know what you're doing, so everybody is connected to you.
Now, finally, what's your take on the Channel's affiliation with the Voice of America? Given that you've been here with us for a few months, what are you going to take back home? Wow,
I'm taking a basket load of experience back home. It may be a busload, more like it, because I've met a lot of people. I've met a lot of people who have shared with me their experiences on the job, and I've learned to be more professional, to be more open, and to actually be more. There's this word they call "do not be biased." There's a way you must have a way you tell your story, and the VOA Channels partnership is going to break records, I promise.
Thank you very much, Oreoluwa. Thank you for joining us today.
Great.
Oreoluwa Shonibare is a reporter with Channels Television in Nigeria. Now, a recent study by the Global Nutrition Report 2017 reveals that eating beans bred to contain more iron boosts memory and attention in women attending college in Rwanda. Especially biofortified beans could prove significant in a continent where iron deficiency affects both adults and children with dire consequences. Lenny Ruvaga reports from Kigali.
Today, Genevieve Mukanama is drying beans in preparation for the market. Mukanama exports biofortified beans to Uganda. She sells a kilogram of the beans for around 50 cents, a fair price here. With the proceeds from the sales, the widow, who is the sole breadwinner for her family of 13, is able to meet her family's basic needs. However, it hasn't been smooth sailing for Mukanama. She says it took a while before the locals accepted the biofortified beans.
When I started growing these beans, it was difficult. Getting a market for them was a huge challenge. Residents here were not familiar with the beans, so I had to start off at very low prices when selling at the market. But over time, my customers have come to like the biofortified beans, and demand has increased.
A recent study by the International Center for Tropical Agriculture, CIAT, has shown that eating beans with higher iron content improved the cognitive abilities of women aged between 18 and 27 years. Dr. Innocent Mbarushimana, one of the scientists who analyzed blood samples of the participants, says iron deficiencies are often ignored. But eating the biofortified beans, he says, has major benefits.
Currently, here in Rwanda, even in the whole of Africa, people do not understand that biofortified beans are more rich in vitamins and protein than other foods or fast food that they take. And again, they are more affordable than other foods.
Rwanda University professor Jean Gahutu, who works closely with the global program Harvest Plus, says because women of reproductive age are at a higher risk for iron deficiency, biofortified beans are the best way to combat the problem.
If you want to fight iron deficiency by distributing supplements, it may not reach the whole population. If you want to add supplement to the food, may not be efficient, it's very expensive. But if you obtain a crop that is better variety, that gives good yield so that the population likes it, then you are sure to reach the whole population.
For farmers like Genevieve Mukanama and her customers, adopting biofortified beans will mean the fight against iron deficiency is being won one bean at a time. Lenny Ruvaga for VOA News, Kigali.
Now, as 2017 draws to a close, the Islamic State's dream of a caliphate in Iraq and Syria is in shambles. A persistent ground campaign by Iraqi government troops and the coalition-backed forces in Syria, combined with Western air power, finally forced the terror group to retreat to the shadows. Yet even as Iraqi, Syrian and Iranian officials declare victory, the United States and its allies warn the fight is far from over. Here's VOA's Jeff Seldin.
The Islamic State terror group made sure 2017 got off to a bloody start, sending a shooter into the Reyna nightclub in Istanbul, killing 39 people on January 1st.
The panicking people, the blood, the noise of the gunshots, the explosions, that's what I keep on thinking about.
But the shock of the deadly terror attack masked a different reality in Iraq, where Islamic State was on its heels as security forces pushed into Mosul, the Iraqi capital of the group's self-declared caliphate.
The enemy collapsed in front of us, leaving their weapons and equipment, and ran away after we inflicted heavy losses on them.
Meanwhile, Islamic State faced a backlash in other parts of the Muslim world, Tunisians taking to the streets to protest the return of fighters. In the U.S., a new president warned Islamic State and groups like it would face annihilation.
We have not used the real abilities that we have. We've been restrained. We have to get rid of ISIS. We have to get rid of ISIS. We have no choice.
As part of the stepped-up effort, the U.S. sought to empower anti-Islamic State forces, for the first time providing the SDF, Syrian Democratic Forces, with armored vehicles, as they began a new push toward the terror group's Syrian capital of Raqqa. In Baghdad, U.S. Defense Secretary Jim Mattis.
We're going to continue to stand by the Iraqi army, the Iraqi people who are fighting this enemy.
Yet, as Islamic State faced more pressure in Iraq and Syria, its influence could be felt elsewhere. In February, an apparent IS sympathizer used a machete to attack guards outside the Louvre in Paris. And the terror group claimed a Palm Sunday attack, killing dozens in Alexandria, Egypt. IS also flexed its muscles in Pakistan and Afghanistan, claiming a March attack on a Kabul hospital, killing more than 30. The U.S. response, dropping its largest non-nuclear bomb on a key Islamic State cave-in tunnel complex in Afghanistan.
Let me be clear, we will not relent in our mission to fight alongside our Afghan comrades to destroy ISIS-K in 2017.
By July, Islamic State's self-declared caliphate was in tatters. Its Iraqi capital of Mosul liberated after months of fighting.
I announce from here to the entire world the end, failure, and collapse of the mythical and terrorist Islamic State group.
3 months later, rejoicing in Raqqa as IS fighters fled the self-declared caliphate's Syrian capital. Also in October, a setback for IS in the Philippines, a 5-month battle to take the southern city of Marawi, ending in defeat. Yet, even as Islamic State lost territory and fighters, its global reach was felt in attacks on Stockholm, Paris, Barcelona, and New York.
ISIS is clearly demonstrating continued ability to pursue its global war, its campaign of attacks in the West. So we're seeing a surge in ISIS activity in Northern Africa, in Afghanistan, and in other theaters such as Southeast Asia.
The terror group apparently heeding the advice of its leader, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, in an audio recording from September. The path to victory, Baghdadi said, is to be patient and resist. Jeff Selden, VOA News, Washington.
We want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our show live on Facebook, so check us out and share our show with your friends. Coming up, the healing power of music. Stay with us.
Health news and notes. This is Living Better.
3-year-old Daria Otapenko was born with undeveloped fingers on her left hand. Now a small company in Moscow, Motorica, is fitting her with their low-cost prosthetic printed in 3D and in colors the child can choose. Alexander Rotnikov of Motorica says that when Daria curves her hand, the cables make the fingers move. It's the kind of prosthetic that 8-year-old Oksana Domracheva has already been using for years. She's become so good at it, the company asked her to do a demonstration for President Putin. Vladimir Putin asked me to jump with a rope, she says, and when I finished, he hugged me. Motorica has been operating since 2013, making prosthetic hands for about $2,000. Some 100 children are using them in Russia, Kazakhstan, Belarus, and Ukraine. I'm Martin Seacrest for VOA's Living Better.
It's time now for our health report, and joining us now is Africa 54 health correspondent Lino Mudu with the details on a new study linking radiation and miscarriage. Lino?
That's right, Esther. A new study states that pregnant women exposed to high radiation levels from sources like cell phones, wireless devices, and cell towers miscarried at nearly 3 times the rate as those exposed to low levels. A scientist at the Kaiser Permanente Division of Research in Oakland, California, provided more than 900 pregnant women in the San Francisco area with meters that measured their exposure to electromagnetic field radiation for 24 hours. Expectant mothers with the highest exposure levels during their typical weekday routines were 2.7 times as likely to miscarry as women with the lowest levels. Researchers that say that traditional sources such as power lines and appliances generate low-frequency magnetic fields, while emerging sources such as cell phones and smart meter networks generate higher frequencies. The researchers say the results underscore the need for additional research into possible health harms of a technology to which many people are now exposed, whether by choice or circumstance. The study was published in the Scientific Reports. Now, at the recent Global Universal Health Coverage Forum 2017 in Tokyo, Japan, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres stressed that health is everyone's right and a driver of economic development. He says a political commitment will be critical for more future investments in health and in achieving universal health coverage.
Health is both an outcome and a driver of progress. It is at the center of our vision of a more sustainable, inclusive, and prosperous future. And it is central to the peace and security agenda. When we invest in health, particularly of women, children, and adolescents, we build more inclusive and resilient societies. Health is a right for all. In a new development era, we must have more streamlined and sustainable financing for health that leverages linkages across sectors. We know that every $1 spent on health yields up to $20 in full income growth within a generation. Political commitment will be critical to unlocking these investments. There is, of course, no one-size-fits-all solution, and each country must walk its own path towards universal health coverage.
The Secretary General noted that in recent decades, there has been historic progress on a variety of health challenges, including vaccination levels, fighting HIV and malaria. However, he says, quote, gross inequities continue to leave the most vulnerable behind. Now it's the holiday season and music is a big part of the celebrations. Music does have power to make us happy, sad, or even ignite social change, but it also has healing powers, and researchers want to know how that works. VOA's Kevin Enoch's report.
The soothing sounds of a violin and the graceful movements of dancers can help take people's minds off painful hospital procedures, like chemotherapy.
It reduces anxiety, and it can also help decrease the amount of medication that a patient needs.
Researchers at the National Institutes of Health are studying how exactly music affects the body.
If we can study the arts in the same way that science studies medications and other therapeutics, I think we will be doing so much good for cura personalis, or care of the whole person.
Opera singer Renee Fleming is part of the study, working with researcher David Jangraw.
If you really want to engage certain parts of the brain, you have to get the person to actually sing along or play an instrument or become part of the music-making process.
Fleming underwent brain scans while speaking, singing, or imagining a piece of music. What researchers discovered is that processing music is an incredibly complex process, and imagining music may be even more complicated. And that music may be a pathway to engage parts of the brain and speed up the healing process.
What neuroscience can do is help us understand which parts of the brain are active when we're making music. And if we find out that that part of the brain is also affected by a disease or a disorder or an injury, now we know that music can be a part of the solution to helping that part of the brain.
But beyond healing, learning or playing music keeps the brain sharp, improves kids' language skills, and helps improve grades. Kevin Enochs, VOA News.
And that's our health report for today. To stay in touch, find me on Twitter @LenorMoudou. Back to you, Esther.
Thanks, Leno. Be sure to watch Leno Moudou's health reports every Tuesday and Thursday right here on Africa 54. It's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54, from meal delivery to fun company, 2017 was the year of the robot. We'll be right back.
The United Nations says 1.25 million people face starvation in South Sudan as the country enters its 5th year of civil war. Thousands of Somali refugees escaping insecurity at home continue to arrive at Ethiopia's southeastern Dolo Ado region. In South Africa, the Soweto townships in Johannesburg, where the ANC's newly elected president, Cyril Ramaphosa, was born, have warmly welcomed his victory. In Uganda, legislators vote overwhelmingly to remove from the constitution an age cap of 75 for presidential candidates, allowing 73-year-old President Yoweri Museveni to seek re-election in 2021.
Welcome back to Africa 54. Here's what's trending. Everything was connected to in 2017 as the tech trend for Internet of Things took over in the garden, the bathroom, kitchens, and even pet accessories. Wearable connected devices really took off. But analysts warned of security risks with so many small companies creating devices that depend on Internet connectivity. At the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas, Amazon's virtual assistant, Alexa, appeared in countless products. At Berlin Fashion Week, the focus was on technological advances in the fashion world. And in big news for gamers, Microsoft Xbox unveiled what's claimed to be the world's most powerful console at the Electronic Entertainment Expo in Los Angeles. Next up, from conducting orchestras to delivering meals in 2017, robotics ventured into new territories not thought possible just a few years ago. While they might not be ready to replace humans in complicated tasks, by performing simple, helpful duties, robots were increasingly finding their way into people's homes. Residents in Washington, D.C. were getting used to sharing the sidewalk with a fleet of small food delivery robots. Local delivery service Postmates is believed to be one of the first services in the United States to use a fleet of robots to deliver food orders. Are humans ready to be replaced by machines? Stay tuned. And finally, this helicopter is flying with no one at the controls. As the new autonomous aerial cargo utility system goes for a test run at Marine Corps Base in Quantico's Urban Training Center in Virginia, the onboard pilot is only there in case of emergency. With just a few simple taps of an app, Marines hope they'll soon be able to order supplies swiftly and safely, even in the most hostile environments. Developers at Aurora Flight Sciences are looking for other possible applications from aerial firefighting missions and medical transportation to commercial flights. And that's what's trending today. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. For more news, tune in to VOA's evening radio show, Africa News Tonight, at 1800 UTC, and in the mornings to Daybreak Africa, between 0300 and 0600 UTC, Monday through Friday. Thanks for watching, and good night from Washington.
Welcome to English in a Minute. A cannon used to be a common military weapon.
Loose cannon.
So, are Anna and Jonathan talking about an old battle?
Hey, I'm looking for someone to host a political event tomorrow night. Can your friend Sylvia help out?
Sylvia? She's a loose cannon. You never know what she's going to say. She could easily